Welcome to the Launch One podcast. I'm Mason Springer. Today we're joined by Casey Vandergraaf from Prime, and we're going to be doing a bow breakdown on the new Prime Divide 2026 hunting lineup. I think this is going to be a great bow from Prime. We've got all kinds of technology in here, and it is honed in. Casey, introduce yourself real quick, and then I want to get into the bow.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm Casey Vandergraaf. I work at G5 Outdoors and Prime Archery. I am our creative director, and I've been here for quite a while. I've been here for 11 years, so I've kind of seen the progression of Prime from when it kind of first started and to kind of where it is now. So a lot of big steps to technology, and got to see the ever-changing bows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And I've run into you several times at different, events throughout the summer, TAC events and ATA maybe, but yeah, I know you're around a lot. But
Yep.
that's really cool. So, getting into the Divide here, give me a quick rundown. Like, what are some of your main features here?
Yeah, so the Divide is kind of like the generation two of our Form series. So the Form was a pretty big launch for us. You kind of, with a bow launch and bow progression, you kind of have like in every 3 to 4 years, you come out with something big and then build upon it. And the Form was a piece of technology that we've been working on for 8 plus years, just messing around with carbon and how to infuse that with aluminum and how to make that whole system work. So the Divide is kind of the first step of that initial project and the idea we had. This, we call it AST. So it's the merging of carbon and aluminum. And
Yes.
on the manufacturing side, what it allowed us to do is create a bunch of different bows out of this technology. So you can cut the carbon tubes different. There's 3 different aluminum lugs on it, so you can kind of cut individual pieces a little bit different to get a wide variety of just different options. So we have a 31, 33, 35, and 37-inch axle to axle in our Divide series. All of those are available in 2 different brace heights, so a 6-inch and a 7-inch. And kind of what that allows us to do is we've got to a couple draw lengths that we've never gotten to on the shorter side and the longer side. And we can kind of just customize quite a bit on it so it fits your best, your preferred specs. You're getting the numbers you want out of it. You can go for speed, you can go for forgiveness, and you can kind of just do a wide variety of things with this instead of being locked down to we're only offering a 33-inch, 6.5-inch brace height. You can kind of we've got a little bit of everything. So we have a bow builder on our website where you can kind of take a series of tests and get fitted for the prime that's going to fit you best. So that's kind of like the newest part of the Divide series is just having a lot more options and kind of just the tip of the iceberg of what this AST technology can do. So we've got plans for the next couple of years to go even further with that, but this is just kind of proving a little bit. Not only last year was just kind of you had a 34-inch, we came out with a 31 or a 30 later on in the year, but it was kind of just like showing people getting them used to a carbon aluminum hybrid riser and what that looked like. So this is the first year where we took it a step further and show you what the capabilities of this are going to be able to allow for.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I really like about Prime is you guys offer that longer axle to axle. You've got 6 and 7 inch brace heights. So more of for me, being from a target background, for me that means accuracy. I
Mm-hmm.
really like those longer axle to axles, more stability, and you guys have plenty of options too with the Divide. Like you said, you've got that customization to it. So that's really cool. And then I really do like how you guys combine the carbon and the aluminum all together in one riser, and it just makes everything more versatile, like you say.
Yep. Yeah, no, we've been really happy with it. It's performed extremely well. We were pleasantly surprised with a lot of things when going down this hybrid route. Those carbon bars that are in our riser are extremely strong and they're extremely stiff. So a stiff riser obviously is a very good thing. You have a little bit less play in the bow, but there is still movement, and we're just able to control that with the aluminum spots. So anywhere there's a straight on load between throughout the draw cycle, like that's why we have those bars there in those parts. Anywhere where there's a bend in the bow or we want it to move a certain way, that's when we incorporate aluminum. So
Yeah.
it's kind of just making the riser flex the way we want it to in the spots that we want it to.
Yeah, that's one big thing that I learned. I don't know if I ever told you this, but I actually went on a factory tour with Brian Anderson here a couple years ago, and that's one thing that I learned from him being at the factory. He was showing me one of the draw machines that you guys had. He's like, yeah, every bow, the riser, flexes as you draw it back from all the pressure, and every bow does that. Some bows do it more, some bows do it less. What I kind of learned about the primes were you've got the kind of like a mirrored riser, right? So the where the riser cutout is on the top half of the bow, you've got that same shape down on the bottom to try to, I don't know, even out the flex in that bow. That's how I
Yeah.
look at it.
Yeah, no, throughout that draw cycle, because we have a center grip riser, all the pressure when you're drawing back is in the dead center of that bow. So we're able to, pretty much mirror the top, like you said. So the bottom's flexing the same exact way.
Yeah. So, how do you get the two different brace height options? Is that different limb lengths or riser shape?
It's the riser shape. Yep. So the top and bottom lug are a little bit different. So one of them just angles a little bit farther forward. So you're able to bring that brace height to a 6. And then the other one is just a little bit more straight up. So you're able to get an extra inch out of the brace height.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. So with the different parts of the bow, you've got the carbon rods, you've got the aluminum, what did you call the ends? Lugs?
Yeah, lugs. So just like, so a lug is just a piece of like a bare piece of aluminum. So beforehand, every other aluminum bow on the market right now, they order forgings from overseas. And then you take that forging and machine into it. And that's where your riser comes from. And that's what we did forever. But with this, we order 3 different lugs. So 3 different giant pieces of square aluminum and then machine them straight out of there. So you don't need as big of a CNC machine to do that kind of stuff, and it's a lot quicker because you're in the United States and bringing that stuff from right down the street versus ordering forgings and worrying about all that cost and getting stuff on time. Bow launches, you have a solid date you need to stick to launch the bow. So a lot of the time in the past, we've been caught up in whether stuff's getting shipped here on time and stuff's caught up. And so we don't have that as much anymore. We can do anything we want with our riser. So we can make mid changes throughout the year. We can do all kinds of cool stuff. So like I said, this is kind of the first generation of this technology, this AST. It's going to allow us to do quite a bit of really cool things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a big advantage. And one of the other things that I really kind of noticed when I was up there at the Prime Factory is you guys do just about everything like in-house right there in Michigan. What's the town called?
Memphis, Michigan.
Memphis, Michigan. That's right.
One stoplight.
Yes, yes. And that was really cool. I know that the Grace family originally was machinists, and that's really cool to me. They went from being a machinist, people that are super precise, know how to run machines, and then kind of transitioned into archery with G5 and Prime, versus a lot of manufacturers are kind of like the opposite. They start in archery and then become machinists to make these things, which that's one thing that I really like about Prime is and G5 is the Grace family's been doing that for many years, and you've got all the ins and outs figured out and a great process.
No, yeah, we still do a ton of that stuff. They started doing super small like screws and stuff like that for the medical industry, which is where Grace Engineering first started. And then we still, I would say 10 to 15% of our business is still that outside stuff. So making screws, we do a lot of stuff for the medical industry. We do a decent amount of stuff for like the rifle stuff too. We make firing pins for a lot of companies and stuff like that. So it's not all archery, but the majority of our business now is. And kind of like you said, it started, they knew how to run machines really well, and then they've always just been really big hunters. So they were like, well, let's try a broadhead and see what we can do. And we already know how to, on the engineering side, do everything. So let's just come up with something cool. And that's kind of where it first started, is from a little bit of a passion project for their dad to get more involved with their kids and show a little bit of interest there and start a project with Nate and Matt, who are running the company right now. He just wanted to get them a little more involved, and they just took the reins, and it's turned into G5 and Prime. Huge.
Yeah, that's amazing. So going through the specs here, like you say, we've got a broad range of stuff with the new AST. Did I get that right?
Yep.
AST. So I'm looking at the spec sheet right here. We've got 31-inch axle to axle, 33, 35, and 37, which is really great. You guys are bringing back that really long axle 37. And then I'm looking at weights here. The 31 inch is 4 pounds, 4.1 pounds, 4.2, and then 4.3 going up here. And then draw lengths on the shortest bow looks like you can go down to 25 and a half. And then on the longer bow, what's their longest axle or
It's
longest draw length here?
32, I believe.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
32. So you got a broad range, and then it says here from 40 to 80 pounds. So yeah, very versatile. And then you said you've got a test on your website to take to kind of choose a bow for you?
Yeah. Yep. So it's our bow fitter. You'll just go through a series of questions. I'll ask you like what your primary, like if you're hunting target, what you're hunting, and then just kind of a couple things like your preference on what do you find most important, speed versus all this other kind of stuff. So you just go through a little survey, and then it'll kind of match you up with what axle to axle and brace height option works best for you.
Okay, so if you personally were running through that customizer, what's the bow setup that you would come out with?
Yeah, so I am a 33 6-inch brace height guy. So I like a little bit in the middle. I'm not a short axle guy. I like a little bit more forgiveness, but I want the forgiveness to be in the axle to axle side of things because I still like speed. So I keep that 6-inch brace height at a 33. I just found that that's kind of my sweet spot.
Yeah, absolutely. And then like what's your draw length?
28 and a half,
20 and a
29.
half. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where I like to be on my string angle and stuff like that. So that's cool. Looking at different specs here. So you've got 3 different parts of the riser that I'm seeing.
Hmm.
2 of them, you've got the lugs, you caught them on the end, and then you've got the centerpiece for the grip. Is that centerpiece the same
Yes.
on the different bows?
Yep.
Yeah, so that probably helps a lot in the production process, doesn't it?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So that's like a lot of this stuff just it's a lot easier on our end and more consistent to manufacture it that way. You're not swapping machines over and everything. It's just like we have a machine that's dedicated towards those middle lugs. And yeah, it's really that's kind of the whole idea behind the AST is just using like the right materials in the right places and keeping everything consistent. And a lot of the struggles with carbon, if you look at carbon risers right now, if you cut them open, there's a lot of metal inside of those carbon bows. So there's always been metal in there, and we're just trying to be more transparent about where it is. And you have pure carbon, the strongest form of carbon, which is a carbon tube.
Yeah.
So yeah, just kind of using those right materials in the right places and keeping stuff consistent by making it as simple as we can.
Yeah, okay. So, I'm kind of looking at a picture of the bow here, running some stuff. I see your cams. Tell me about your cam system.
Yeah, so that's our core cam system. We've had it for 4 years now, I believe. It's a pretty smooth draw, pretty smooth cam. It's not very aggressive. We've had it for a while for a reason.
Yeah,
And then I think last year, I think we have a speed mod as now as well.
yeah,
You can get about 8 feet per second more out of it. But yeah, I mean, we all love it. I think that's a change we might end up making here just to kind of throw something new in. But yeah, right now we're extremely happy with the way it's performing, and yeah, it's done well.
that's great. So, I know one concern that there used to be with having a center grip was knock travel, right? But you guys have solved that somehow on the cams, right?
Yeah, yeah. So we've solved it. Really, the only issue was so you have asymmetrical cams. Your top cam is a little bit bigger than your bottom cam just because your grip in that knock point is a little bit higher. So, really, the only reason why we can do it and other people can is just our machining background. So, most people don't do it, in my opinion, is just because it's a pain in the butt. And it's something that we're willing to go through to get what we think is a better draw cycle, a better holding bow. It's worth having 2 separate cams. But yeah, that's kind of the main reason behind it is it's the benefits of a center grip riser we think are that important that we're willing to put a lot more time into the development of our cams.
Yeah, so explain to me what benefits you see out of the center grip.
I just think so. We've done a couple studies, so it balances quite a bit more. So you have the same amount of metal below your hand as above, and what that does is we're not saying you don't need to run a stabilizer, but you need to put about 8 ounces less on your stabilizer weight to get the same balance as ours is right off the bat. It more allows you to put the weight where you want it, not necessarily where you need it to get to a balanced starting point. So you can
Okay.
kind of customize it a little better, but overall it holds a lot better out of the box, and you can really customize where you're putting weight.
Yeah, so you're like right off the rip lowering that center of mass. I know a lot of guys that run like the offset, the 8-degree down offset on their front
Hmm.
stabilizer, and then, the back stabilizer and on target bows. I know I've always tried to kind of lower that center of mass a little bit, but that's really great that you guys do that
Hmm.
right off the bat. How does your mod system work for your cams? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so they're just draw length specific mods. And then, like I said, we have our speed mod version, but you don't need a bow press or anything. It's just a mod that 2 screws in and out, and you can replace them pretty easy. But yeah, it's a pretty standard mod system.
Okay, so but draw length specific though.
Yep.
Yeah, that's key. That's efficiency, right? That helps with efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had a rotating mod before, and those lower and higher draw lengths just seem to suffer a little bit as far as the draw curve. It's really hard to keep those really consistent with a rotating mod. Um, when Prime first started, we used to do draw length specific cams, and that was like that's the most ideal way to do it in general, but it doesn't make sense
Yeah.
um, as far as the manufacturing side. So this is kind of our second best option is customizing every draw length with that mod still, and making sure that those lower and those higher draw lengths are still just as efficient as your 29 inch.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've seen other brands start to move to a system like that, especially on the target side of things.
Hmm.
But that's a great way of doing it. So I'm looking at the grip here. One thing that I was not able to see when I was at the factory, I don't know if we ran out of time or what it was, but you guys have got a pretty cool grip system, and I've seen a little bit on it, but I really don't know what it is. Can you explain that?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our Nano Grip. So we have our outer shell of it, and then underneath that grip is what's called aerogel, and it's a NASA material that's the best in the world at separating super cold and super warm. So having an aluminum riser as our base, that's one of the main benefits of having an all carbon riser, is that it's warm to the touch. Well, we have that material in between our grip and your hand. So no matter how cold that riser gets, your hand isn't going to be cold. It's not going to affect the grip at all. So yeah, it
Yeah.
pretty much. So then you have, with the way that we use carbon and the way that we have our grip now, there's no benefit to going all carbon for us, at least internally. We haven't found a benefit for it yet. It's just you get the warm grip, you get the benefits of carbon where it's supposed to be, um, and that's the system that we found has worked the best.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know just from dealing with arrows that carbon seems to be a lot more finicky than, aluminum. Aluminum's like a pretty uniform, predictable material. You know exactly how it's going to bend, what it's going to do.
Hmm.
Carbon fiber is a lot harder to manage.
Yeah.
But then when you just have those, straight tubes, that's about as simple, easy, reliable
Yeah.
as it gets, I'd say.
Yeah. And like that's when I said at the beginning, we've kind of messed around with carbon for 8+ years, and it's just not a very consistent there isn't a very good system to laying carbon in general. Our engineers went overseas to like huge conventions to like when they're showcasing new products on carbon and how to lay carbon, and he's looking at it and he's like, this still isn't very consistent. Like when we're talking about risers, and it's still not a very consistent way to do it, because you're not, when you lay the carbon and then the amount of adhesive that you're using and everything drying the exact same way every time and making sure it gets into every corner and hardens the right way. It's just really, really hard to do. And I mean, I would say nearly impossible to do super consistently. So that's why the carbon rods kind of came up and we started playing around with those. And if you look at like golf shafts and arrows and all of that kind of stuff, like that technology is getting so good that I mean, arrows are 0.001 like a lot of the time, straightness wise, and they're so stiff and they're consistent flex. So that's kind of why we started to look into that, where like you have all the benefits of carbon, and then you're able to keep it as like super super consistent and strong. It just kind of seemed like a how do we put these carbon rods into a bow somehow, and where's it going to benefit the most? So that's what that
Yeah.
AST is. It's called Advanced Structure Technology. So it's just like using those best materials in the best spots of the riser, no matter what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great way of doing it, keeping it's just unnecessary to make the whole riser out of carbon, like you say.
Hmm.
Well, what kind of target market would this bow be great for? What kind of hunter would buy the Divide and love it?
Yeah, so we like to think that the kind of like the techie guys, like more of like the bow nerds, are the ones that when they stop by our booth at Total Archery Challenge, they're the ones that kind of see right off the bat that like this all just kind of makes sense. People usually with like engineering backgrounds are the ones that are just like, yeah, that's why hasn't that been done before? But yeah, it's kind of those guys that really are nitpicky about their bows and want more advantages on the bow side rather than like the cool new quiver or whatever. We're not that company that cares too much about that. And even like the tuning stuff, like our tuning is very simple. We just have a shim system on our cams and stuff like that. But we try really hard to fix the issues that a riser has so that there isn't need for tuning. We
Yeah.
have tuning available if you need it, but we want to make sure our bow is the easiest to tune and easiest to work with, and everything's working together like it's supposed to. So those tuning methods and all that kind of stuff don't matter too much to us.
Yeah. Yeah, and absolutely, and simple methods. Obviously, you've still got all the stuff. It might take you, 30 seconds longer to do something, but for me, less screws is always better,
Hmm.
especially on a hunting bow, because when you're out dragging it through the elements, there's always so many things that can go wrong.
Yep.
But for me, simple is good. Awesome. Well, I appreciate the conversation, Casey. I'm going to get this out here for everybody to see, and it'll be a hit, and I'm sure it will be. How can people reach out to you if they've got any questions or
Yeah, so I run our social media on G5 and Prime, so you can just DM there, and yeah, that's probably the best way to kind of ask some questions. Check out our website, take that quiz, see what bow fits you best. But yeah, just kind of reach out on all of our platforms, and then I have my personal Instagram if you feel the need to ask me a question specifically. It's just my name. But other than that, yeah, just kind of reach out right through Prime and G5.
Perfect. Awesome. I appreciate you doing this episode with me, Casey. And then also, when you're listening to this, in a few days, I'm going to be dropping a buck breakdown with Casey on his buck from earlier this year. And we're going to go through all the details on that. But thanks for listening,
Yeah,
and we'll see you on the next episode.
thank you.